The chilling encounter at the university library. While in university, I used to take 6 courses every semester to complete a dual degree in 4 years. This meant I was constantly neck-deep in homework and studying. Our university library was open until midnight, but since I was also interning that semester, I had almost no time for my schoolwork. I still lived on campus, and my noisy roommates could be very distracting. This was a Wednesday night. After 3 classes and my internship, and with 2 exams looming the next day, I headed straight for the library. It was huge. When I arrived at 9 p.m., there was a decent crowd, but it quieted down significantly between 9 and 10. I planned to stay until midnight. Around 11 p.m., most people were gone, and I was sitting at a table nestled between 2 tall bookshelves, which made my spot feel private and secluded, less distracting. That's when a guy, who looked to be in his late 20s, walked into my section. He passed several empty tables and chose mine, sitting down diagonally across from me. I looked up, he looked back and smiled as he set his books down. I quickly looked back down, trying to focus and not wonder why he had picked my table. I was reviewing slides on my laptop when he said, "Excuse me," and asked if I happened to be taking a specific economics course. I politely told him, "No, sorry," hoping that would be the end of it. But then he started explaining why he asked, because his professor is a beast and gives pop quizzes every day. I said, "Wow, that really sucks," and tried to get back to studying. Mentally, I was no longer focused on the material. Now I was distracted by this man, who I had a feeling would keep trying to talk to me. I looked up from my screen and saw him looking at me, smiling with his lips. I looked back down, contemplating getting up and moving or just leaving entirely. Then he asked my name. I made one up, Chelsea. He said, "You have such blue eyes, Chelsea." It was then I started to question if he was truly there to study or to creep on women. The fact that he looked nearly 30 certainly didn't help. I asked him the name of his economics professor. He paused, then said, "Professor Davis." I asked if he knew the first name. He shook his head no. I immediately went to ratemyprofessor.com and looked up any professor named Davis at our school. Only one came up, a calculus professor, whose last reviews were years ago. I decided to get up and ask the security guard at the front door for help. As I stood, I could feel his stare following me. I told the guard the man was creeping me out and that I didn't think he was a student. The guard walked back with me and asked to see his student ID. He started fumbling through his wallet, then his pockets, and then claimed he must have left it in his dorm. The guard then asked what dorm building he lived in. The guy was clearly lying. He didn't know what to say, and eventually mumbled, "I honestly don't remember what it's called." The security guard escorted him out of the library and came back to tell me to be careful walking back to my dorm. I thanked him. For the rest of my time there, my mind was too distracted by what a creep that guy was. I did my best to study, and around 12 I packed up. I left through the same way the security guard had taken him out. He wasn't standing there, though. I started walking through the basically deserted campus. No one walks around that late on a weekday. As I neared my dorm, I heard the loud sound of a shoe hitting the concrete behind me. I spun around but saw no one. I knew for a fact I had heard a footstep. I started to run. That may have been a mistake, because the second I broke into a run, I heard running footsteps behind me. I turned and saw the man from the library sprinting towards me. I screamed at the top of my lungs, but only for a second before he tackled me to the ground and clapped a hand over my mouth. "You better shut up or I'll kill you," he threatened. I genuinely thought my life was about to end. He got to his feet and started dragging me by the throat off the main walkway toward the woods right by the dorms. I managed to rip his hand away just long enough to scream again. It was enough to catch the attention of 2 guys who came running over, yelling, "Hey, stop!" at my kidnapper. The man let go of me and fled into the woods. The 2 guys rushed to me, asking if I was okay, but I was in total shock, blocking out all noise for a few moments. Then I completely let my emotions out and started bawling my eyes out. The guys called university police. I pulled myself together and explained what happened. We went back to the library, where the security worker's description of the man matched mine. The police were also able to use the library's camera footage to get a clear picture of the man's face. The picture was sent out to all students' phones and emails, and on the school website. That same night, an anonymous tip came in that the man was at a late-night dive bar down the road. The police arrived and arrested him. The level of trauma this induced was incredible. I can't imagine the trauma for those who weren't as lucky as me in situations like this. Hide and seek in the children's room. This is one of those early, blurry childhood memories from before we moved when I was 7. If I had to guess, I was maybe 5 or 6. My mom would always take my brothers and me to the local town library, just a few blocks away. I remember one day it was my mom, my little brother, a toddler, and me. We started the day at the mall, probably spending hours shopping. Whenever we went to this mall, she'd take us to the McDonald's inside for ice cream cones. I remember getting ice cream that day because I still had some of the cone left in my hand on the way to the library. At the library, my mom would let me sit in the kids' computer section and play games while she did whatever she needed to. When I got bored of playing the old online games, I got up and started walking through the book aisles in the children's section, looking for the I Spy books. The kids' section was in the far corner of the library. As I walked from aisle to aisle, I heard a quiet poof sound behind me. I turned around and saw nothing. I was looking at the back wall of the library, which had another shelf leaning against it. Then, half of a grown man's face peered around the shelf, and he said, "Peekaboo!" I remember laughing and feeling no sense of danger. He did it again, went back behind the shelf, then popped his head out and said, "Peekaboo!" again. I laughed. He asked what I was looking for, and I said the I Spy books. He said he would help me find them. He came over, took my hand, and led me through the aisles to the section starting with I, and there they were, at least 5 I Spy books. I grabbed my favorite, the treasure hunt one, and he said, "Let's go sit down and play." He led me to a table in the corner, and we started looking through the pictures. This went on for some time, and he was asking me questions about myself as we played. The question that sticks out the most is, "Who are you here with?" I told him my mom and little brother. At some point after this, he mentioned there was a kids' playroom downstairs. At that age, I never knew the library had a downstairs. He suggested we could take the book down there. He led me to the door that led to the basement, which is where events and meetings are held. There was, in fact, a small playroom down there for parents who had to bring their kids. The man led me into that little playroom. There were various toys, most notably a Lego set and table, and a bunch of chairs. He set the I Spy book down on the Lego table. This is where thinking back becomes truly uncomfortable. As he started trying to forcibly get me to play with the toys, I started to feel uneasy. Around this time, a female librarian's voice came over the loudspeaker. "Will Liam please come to the front? Your mother is looking for you." At that moment, the man went and turned off the lights in the room. It was pitch black. He said in the dark, "We're going to play hide and seek." This was the first moment I was genuinely terrified, and I started screaming for my mom. I remember him repeatedly telling me to be quiet, his voice getting louder as he got closer to me in the dark, until he had his hands on me. Thankfully, I managed to run past him and out the door of that room. I ran down the dark hallway back to the stairs. Running up the stairs, I had that same childhood feeling of running up basement stairs after turning off the lights, only 100 times worse because I was genuinely afraid I was going to be grabbed. I made it back to the main floor of the library and ran straight to the front desk, calling for my mom. She was at the front desk with a group of librarians. I remember the relief on her face when she saw me. I told her some man had taken me downstairs, and she absolutely lost it. The next thing I remember was a bunch of police in the building searching around, but I never saw that man again. He must have exited through another way. I remember speaking to a woman, probably with the police, who asked me very delicate questions. I never really asked my mom about this experience many times because it's too uncomfortable, and I'd rather just not think of it. The final patron after closing. I used to work at the local public library in my early 20s. I took the night shifts as my second job at least 3 times a week, getting there at 6 p.m. and working until closing time at 9 p.m. I was also the one who locked up the place after closing. I wouldn't just leave right away, though. I had to shut off all the computers, do some cleaning and organizing, stock the shelves with all the returned books and DVDs from the day, take out the garbage, and only then could I leave. It was a Friday night, and closing time was near. Most of the other library staff had already left. It was just myself and one female librarian remaining. I made a couple of last-call announcements. The other employees said goodbye, right as the clock struck 9. I announced over the intercom that the library was officially closed. The 2 remaining patrons gathered their things and left. After I saw no one else, I locked the front door. I proceeded to straighten all the chairs, empty the garbage cans, and then, to take them out to the dumpster on the side, I unlocked the front door again and brought them out. It was quiet outside. The library was tucked away from the main roads. When I came back inside, I locked the door again. Now, all I had to do was restock all the returned books and DVDs. I grabbed the 2 boxes and started with the DVDs, which was quicker. During this time, I was sure I heard something come from one of the book aisles. I walked through the aisles until I found an open book lying on the floor, which had clearly just fallen off the shelf. I put it back and stood there for a second, wondering, how could that have happened? I went back to work. After finishing the DVDs, I took the box of books and started putting them back one by one, going in alphabetical order. As I worked my way down the shelves, trying to finish up and go home, I heard another noise nearby. Twice in less than 20 minutes. That was no coincidence. I set the box down and started walking through the aisles again. I found another 2 books on the ground in a different aisle. Someone was in here. I walked out to the open area with all the tables and yelled, "Excuse me, the library is closed." Silence. Until I heard something from across the library coming from the children's section. I approached the noises, and it started to sound like some rabid animal making growling sounds. I also heard books being thrown onto the floor. It was coming from one aisle. As I built up the courage to peek down the aisle, I saw a woman, wearing a nightgown, throwing random books off the shelf and making these disgusting, animal-like noises. I didn't say anything. I turned and ran to the office where we kept the phone. I locked the office door and closed the blinds on the window. I called 911. I reported that there was some sickly woman in the library and that they should send an ambulance. They asked if I had approached her. I said no, she looked dangerous. When the operator asked if she was still in the same spot, I opened the blinds and screamed because that woman was right on the other side of the glass looking in. Her pupils were so big that she looked demonic. I told the operator, "She's right outside the office." The woman started banging on the glass, screaming gibberish. She tried opening the door, and when it didn't budge, she turned around and sat on a chair facing the office. The operator asked me to keep the blind open and watch her. The woman was wobbly as she sat down, so I noted she was definitely high out of her mind. 2 police cars and an ambulance showed up at the library. The woman was put in handcuffs because she tried fighting the police officers, but nothing she was saying made any sense. She was put in the back of an ambulance and taken away. I never found out what the hell she was on. I don't know how she got inside. Maybe while I was taking the garbage out, or maybe she was hiding before I even locked the place up. Either way, it definitely made being in the library alone after closing pretty unsettling from then on out.